Well, I am now making this little video tutorial on a camera. And I want to talk about a handful of things that you need to make sure you know for the camera test. So let's talk a little bit about the dynamics of a camera, huh? Alright, so first and foremost we have ISO. And what's ISO, everybody? Image light sensitivity output. What that basically means is how sensitive can I make my camera to light? So when that happens, if it's really nice outside, like right now, I would have an ISO 100. And as the sky or whatever, your lighting becomes darker, my camera needs to become more sensitive, so that number is going to increase. So like if I'm inside, I'm probably going to be around anywhere between 1,000 and 1,600 ISO. And as it gets worse and darker outside, so football at night, we would have it up at 2,000 or even up to 2,400 or something like that. But you have to be careful, because if you crank that up too much, your pictures will become grainy. There it is. There's my hand. All right. So the other things that you have to think about are aperture, which is a fancy way of saying depth of field. Hint. All right, depth of field basically is that way where we have our person in focus and our background in focus. So everything in the background right now of me is in focus. That means my depth of field is very large. So I would be assuming that my video camera right here would be shooting at like 4.6 or something like that to include my background. But if I had a really nice camera with a really nice lens, like this one without the lens, would be around 2.8, which means that if I took a picture of my glowing face, that my background would have a nice bokeh to it, a blurred background. That depth of field is very shallow, okay? All right, last thing that we need to talk about is shutter speed. Shutter speed is basically how fast your shutter opens and closes. The slower it opens, the more light comes in. But if I open this slowly, that means any kind of movement will become blurred. So that's why when we're shooting at something like, say 1/20th of a second, if I start doing this, my hand is going to be blurry. But if I do that at 1/3000th of a second, it's going to be like frozen, because my shutter is very fast, okay? So if my shutter speed is really fast, less light. So that's when the ISO comes into play. I have to crank up the ISO in order to shoot those pictures. So you can see that all those things taken together create a triangle of photography. And if I mess with my shutter speed, there's a give and take to my aperture and to my ISO, and so on and so forth. So aperture, if I mess with aperture, it's going to affect my shutter speed and my ISO as well. Other review thing is white balance. That basically means I'm looking at white in different light temperatures. So fluorescent, tungsten, cloudy, sunny, all those have a different way of looking at white. So we use white balance to correct that with our camera. So that's basically some of the major buttons that you're going to look at on this. We talked about today this little button here, but I don't think that's going to be on the test. We talked about if we ever need to zoom in on things or mess with my point focus when I'm taking pictures. This little fella right here, you see him? The little cross? Yeah, there it is. That guy is going to be what I'm going to push there to mess around and manipulate with all that stuff. Okay, boys and girls, I think that's all you really need to know on the basics of a camera. Take it all in, because you're going to be tested on it Monday.